everybody, and welcome to a very special episode of the Geek Bites brought to you by the
Geek
Buddies. I say very special because we are walking into a new franchise here on the Geek Buddies / Geek Bites, and it is the Doctor Who franchise. I have been a massive fan of Doctor Who for a very long time. Michael is a new convert to the series, so we will talk about all of that and break down the first two episodes. This is a spoiler review. The first two episodes of the new season of Doctor Who that is streaming on Disney Plus, of course, brought to you by the BBC there. So we're going to break it all down. Just want to introduce ourselves first. I'm the Outlaw John Rocha, writer, producer, and host here on the Geek Buddies.
I am Michael Vogel. I'm a writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies, and you can see some of my work right now on YouTube and Netflix with Strawberry Shortcake, Barry in the Big City.
Big City, I know. Well, maybe you'll be inspired to write a Doctor Who Strawberry Shortcake crossover episode. That could be a lot of fun. Little allusions to Doctor Who.
Listen, as far as I can tell so far, I would love to write a special of Doctor Who of anything because I'm really enjoying it. So, yeah, no, you're right. This is fun. Like usually when we do our Geek Bites and we talk about stuff, whether it's like Star Wars or DC or the Marvel Universe or X-Men 97, we're pretty well-informed geeks. And Doctor Who is definitely something that has been at the fringes of my geek knowledge, and only recently have I dived in. So it's kind of an interesting new thing. I think a lot of you watching this are probably going to be way smarter about Doctor Who than I am, but as someone who's new to the franchise, I'm really excited to talk about it.
Yeah, and this is something that I got into right at the end of Matt Smith's tenure, and then got into Peter Capaldi really big time. Watched all those episodes and all those seasons. Loved Bill as his companion there, and then went back and watched a lot of the Tennant, watched a lot of the Matt Smith again, going back through that time, and with the Christopher Eccleston stuff with Billy Piper. So I've had that knowledge. And then I've watched occasional episodes with Tom Baker and others on Pluto TV because they have a Doctor Who channel where they play all the Doctor Who's, not necessarily in order. So it's always fun to stumble upon one and discover how they dealt with the Daleks way back when, and all the Cybermen and all the different characters. And of course, the Master that still endures, who we have not yet... we have not yet met. I find the Master there. We have not yet met in the Doctor Who season just yet, but a lot of interesting things to talk about here. So we are going to have some fun breaking it down, just reminding you all we are not the biggest Doctor Who, know all the mythology, but we know enough of it to have a fun conversation. And Michael is the people that Disney Plus wants to bring aboard. So I hope you all enjoy Michael discovering all of this as we discover all of this. Yeah.
And I do think, look, if you're listening to this, you're probably a Doctor Who fan. But if you happen to not be, I do want to say, I think that what BBC and Disney have done, this is how I got into Doctor Who. You know, at the end of last year, I think, beginning of this year, last year, the specials, they did 3 specials.
Yep.
On Disney Plus that focused on David Tennant and Catherine Tate returning as the Doctor and Donna Noble. And so I watched those and I just dove in and just checked them out. And that kind of kicks off a lot of stuff that is going to lead into like this new season, but it also kind of got me interested in the past. Like I enjoyed the episodes for what they were. It leads up to Neil Patrick Harris coming on as this character, the Toy Maker, and kind of gets into where the 15th Doctor, Ncuti Gatwa, comes from and how he becomes the new Doctor. But I enjoyed those episodes so much that I actually went back on Max and watched most of the David Tennant season and then almost all of the Matt Smith seasons. So I really dove deep, as geeks are prone to do, and watched a good chunk of Doctor Who before these new episodes premiered this past week. So I have a lot of I took in a lot of Doctor Who information pretty rapidly, and so we'll see how much of it sticks. But so far, I'm really enjoying these new episodes as well, so I'm excited to talk about them.
His brain is timey wimey for sure. Yeah. So let's get into these spoiler review episodes here, Mike. The first one here is Space Babies. This one, of course, written by Russell T Davies, who's come back to the Doctor Who project here, and he has written the entire season, I think, for the most part. But this one's directed by Julianne Robinson. We pick up right after the Christmas special there that I got a chance to watch again over the weekend, and we get basically the first few minutes here are an exposition dump about the Doctor for new viewers like Michael, but who have maybe not gone back and watched other episodes to understand some of the mythology here with the Doctor. Ruby, we get introduced to Ruby Sunday, who was played by Millie Gibson, and the Doctor. They launch into this backstory on the Doctor and his posh planet Gallifrey and the genocide of his people. We established the ground rules of time travel with this fun little moment where Ruby steps on a butterfly and turns into this scaly other creature there. But then we go off to 2506 to a baby-making space station orbiting a human colony planet with a dangerous pressure buildup somewhere on the ship. We meet babies in strollers who are not manning, they're babying the space station under the watchful eye of Nan E, who is also Jocelyn, voiced and played by Golda Rashubal. But they are terrorized by the boogeyman. The Doctor and Ruby discover that the boogeyman was created by some damaged educational software on purpose for the kids, and that the boogeyman is in essence the space station's baby. Nanny erroneously wants to kill him. The Doctor saves him from something that reminds you of Alien 4 and discovers the pressure buildup is from all the undiscarded nappies, and they fart the ship into possibly a safer place by the end, roaming out of there. Of course, there's also allusions to Ruby's birth there, where she was left on the church doorsteps. We have these fun little moments between them where it snows inside the TARDIS. So, Mike, your overall thoughts here on this particular episode, and what stood out for you as you're watching this episode? Wasn't that highly received by a lot of the Doctor Who fans, but what did you think of a first episode here to get us into the season?
Well, I was talking to some of my geek friends who are Geek Buddies listeners who are bigger Doctor Who fans than me. And one of the things they pointed out is that Russell T Davies, as great as he is with Doctor Who, and everyone's pretty excited, most people are pretty excited that he's back, tends to be a little bit on the sweeter and sillier side. Yeah. And when Stephen Moffat was writing Doctor Who, he tends to be on the heavier, more serious side. And when the two of them work together, the balance is really right. Space babies for a lot of people might be a little bit on the sillier side of Doctor Who, but once you get past the booger monster and the farting the space station to safety at the end, I think it is really interesting because, as you said, this follows up after the Christmas special, The Church on Ruby Road, which is sort of the origin of Ruby Sunday and how she is this orphan, and her parentage is seemingly the big mystery of this season of the Doctor. So, the way that I have learned recently, the way that most story arcs work for a character that just kind of has gone on forever, is that the story arcs sort of are built around the companions. So Ruby Sunday, brand new companion, don't know who her parents are. If you watch the Christmas special, The Church on Ruby Road, it's very specific about she's adopted. There was a mystery on Christmas. We don't know where she came from. And so getting into this episode, really baby focused, a little silly, but still, as the Doctor makes the point in this episode, very much about babies who don't have parents, babies who don't have a home. Ruby was a baby who didn't have a home. The Doctor doesn't have a home anymore because Gallifrey is gone. So there's a lot of interesting things here. So I thought thematically it was a nice way to sort of start building up the mystery of Ruby Sunday, even if it was a little silly. From a specific space baby part of the episode, this is where, again, I think it probably veered a little into the silliness of like the boogeyman is a bogeyman and he's a booger monster. But I actually do like the idea of, and like Ruby says this, that like this was sort of epic mythology playing out in baby form, like babies and children. As someone like me who is a nerd for like fairy tales and mythology and stuff like that, just historically, one of the reasons that we have fairy tales and that we raise kids on stories about witches and monsters and these creatures is because when you're a kid, the world is really scary and you don't really understand what's going on. So the way that you sort of comprehend the dangers of the world is that really tall guy that scared you at the store is a giant and that really mean lady is a witch. And so that's sort of how you start to build your understanding of the world. So it makes sense that babies would need a monster that they would need to slay, and sort of the allusions, as you said, to Alien. You're on a spaceship, there is a monster running around, you end up blowing it out of the airlock. The Alien allusions are clear. I'm a big fan of Alien. So there was a lot of fun stuff here. Do I wish it had veered a little bit out of literally diaper humor? Sure. But I liked a lot of the ideas. Also, one of the most important moments, as you said, is the moment that it snows on the ship when Ruby and the Doctor are having the conversation and the Doctor has the flashback to the night she was born, because I'm going to get a lot of this wrong probably, but between the Giggle episode, which is one of the Doctor Who specials that introduced Neil Patrick Harris as the toy maker, a sort of multi-dimensional, super powerful being that could control reality. And then in the next episode that we're about to talk about, Jinkx Monsson played the Maestro,
Don't get ahead
who is the child of the toy maker and also one of these powerful figures who can control reality. And there's this mystery of the one who waits, who also seems to be a member of this pantheon, who ostensibly can control reality. That having Ruby as this character have Snow just appear around her when she thinks of it, and us not knowing who her parents are, and particularly given some stuff that happens in the next episode, seems like maybe Ruby's parentage and these characters in the Pantheon are tied together. So that all seems really interesting to me.
Yeah, I know. I think this was a nice intro. I mean, if you watch the Christmas special, obviously you got a nice introduction to Ncuti Gatwa as the doctor, and then Millie Gibson here as the companion in their chemistry, right? And look, this is a doctor I'm not used to. This is a completely different doctor. And so for me, as an older fan of Doctor Who, you know, and especially because Capaldi was my first Doctor Who, really, because I loved him because he hearkened back to the first Doctor, who gets referenced, and we'll talk about it in the second episode. This took me a little bit to get used to. The goblins dancing, having their songs, this kind of thing. The musical aspect of these first 3 episodes was an interesting thing to get used to. But this first episode, really liked how he is unabashedly a different kind of doctor that we've seen before. And although the exposition felt a little pedantic for those who are Doctor Who fans, I'm sure new Doctor Who fans who want to take a chance on this series watch those first few minutes and we're like, okay, at least I've got a basic idea of what's going on here. Yeah, maybe it was a little clumsy and awkward the way it was handled, but I've got some idea what's going on here. Okay, let's go forward into this story. And look, we're not going to take you out into the nuttiness just yet. This is a safe, funny, playful story about space babies. The way they do the CGI was fun to see. The fact that they're in their strollers having these conversations. Who doesn't have a soft spot for babies that can actually talk like adult humans, but still retain their baby kind of inner child thing? So the back and forths there with the babies, I think, is cute. That one baby that rolls off because Ruby told him to be brave, to go confront the boogeyman. I thought that was a very cute
I love you, Ruby.
sequence.
I love you, Ruby. I love you, Ruby. He loved her. He loved her.
Yeah, he did. And Poppy, the captain, Poppy there connecting with Ncuti, or with the doctor rather. I thought that was great as well. So there was a lot of things here that were fun within a story that was told a little bit too simply, a little bit too softly. But I think this was done just to get people in the door. Yeah. And this next episode we're going to talk about, I think, was much more a Doctor Who episode. But this was fine for what it was to start us off. Yeah, go ahead.
I do agree, though. So one of the experiences I had in the very recent past was I watched the first 3 specials, as I said, were David Tennant's the Doctor. I'm a big David Tennant fan, period. Yeah. So I went back and just jumped right to the David Tennant episodes on Max. And so got the story of him, got the story of Donna, and kind of watched them through the end of his season and really enjoyed it. Then Matt Smith showed up.
Yeah.
And I watched that first Matt Smith episode, and I was like, who the fuck is this guy?
Yeah, of course.
That's not David Tennant. And I really had like this moment where I was like, I know Matt Smith is really popular and a lot of people like him. I don't know that I like this doctor. Cut to literally 48 hours later after I've binged almost an entire season. And I was like, and now Matt Smith might be my favorite doctor at the moment, and just that I've watched, like, I really liked him. And so I agree with you. Look, I love Ncuti Gatwa on Sex Education. Yeah. I think he is one of the best parts of that show. I think he's super great. I love the inherent queerness that is just baked into this 100%. Season of The Doctor, which we can talk 100%. About in a minute. Yeah. So I'm already inclined to like him, but I also had that same thing after watching David Tennant and Matt Smith. I didn't get to Capaldi yet, and I didn't get to the other doctors, but after watching them, he's super different.
Yeah.
He's got a totally different vibe, and it takes a minute, but I think I like the vibe. What I like is, and they made a point of this in the final of the 3 specials, the Giggle, where Ncuti Gatwa is sort of introduced, is that he's a doctor that's at the opposite end of a lot of the other doctors. There's a lot of trauma inherent in being the doctor. Yeah. Both in losing your planet, in the adventures you've gone on, and the things that you've seen, the things you've done, the companions you've lost. Yeah. And there's a lot of trauma and weirdness about being the doctor. And Ncuti Gatwa is sort of the doctor that has moved past a lot of that and is just all about the joy still has a lot of that sadness inherent in him,
Yeah.
but has processed it in a different way. And I think there's a lot of interesting things to play with that. So I
Yeah.
agree with you. It's a little bit weird at first, but I think it always is.
Yes.
But so far, I think they're on the right track.
Yeah, because a lot of people had issues with Capaldi when he first came on, and I loved him, and I had not seen the Matt Smith or David Tennant episodes like extensively because I'd love the Vincent Van Gogh episode, but I hadn't seen a lot of them. And then Capaldi came in, I was like, this is my kind of doctor. So I liked that. But I know a lot of people had issues with. So that's part of the process, right? The regeneration, in this case, by regeneration, which we had with Ncuti and with David Tennant that happened there at the end. That was really interesting when they fought the toy maker. There's these aspects here, and of course, in this episode, we also touch on what was introduced under the Jodie Whittaker time as Doctor Who, and that is the Timeless Child storyline, where we discover that the Doctor is not actually by birth Gallifreyan. He is also, like Ruby, left on the doorstep, in essence, of the Time Lords. So this is an interesting twist that Russell T Davies is keeping for this story. And as you said, the connection with Ruby being left on doorstep of the church, the Doctor himself being someone who was left on the doorstep, in essence, of Gallifrey, and this idea of who is Ruby's mother, this is all going to tie in. And the idea of coincidences, which was brought up in the Christmas episode and carried over into these two episodes, the idea of music and the connection, as you mentioned, with Ruby. What is her parentage? And we're going to get into some theories a little bit later to get your ideas on them, which I think will be a lot of fun, because I did some scouring of ideas and theories of that people were having that I really like and enjoy here. But overall, I think it accomplished this episode, the connection and the chemistry they have, that there's the mystery of Ruby's birth, that the Doctor is somehow connected to it. Because don't forget that scene where the Doctor looks very serious watching her play the piano in that nightclub. What is that from the Christmas episode? There's something more here that they're all discovering, and the Doctor still can't figure out what the mystery is. And he scans her at the end to get her DNA to try to figure out what's going on, but she registers as a 19-year-old human from this planet. So what is he trying to discover with all of this? So it was a fun way back in for the most part. Yeah, you could have criticized it. I'm sure there are criticisms that are strong to have about it, but I think it just kind of introduced us to them and their chemistry, and then we go forward. Anything more and then touches on, I want to ask you, Mike, it touches on, it certainly makes a commentary about pro-choice and pro-life, and it certainly makes a commentary about the refugee situation, which is, of course, going on in our world nowadays. Both of those things being very big, but they make allusions to them, as Doctor Who usually does. What did you think about how they weave that into the overall plot here in this particular episode?
I'm sure that if you don't agree with those things, you thought it was heavy-handed. As someone who agrees probably with Russell T Davies, I thought they handled it nicely. I think they didn't build an entire episode around it. They just sort of threw those things in there. Here's some comment. Here's just a little thing that we're throwing in, which was nice, I thought. Really quickly for you, because I know you're a big Star Trek fan, this episode also seemed to confirm that Star Trek and the Doctor Who universes are in the same universe, and that they could go visit those guys.
How is that possible? No, when he said it, I was like, wait, what? They're two different studios. People talk about Avengers, X-Men. If Doctor Who and Star Trek crossed over, and I think there have been allusions in the past to that possibility, I would be 1,000,000% down with that possibility in the future. I don't know how Disney and the BBC and Paramount, I don't know how that all works, but if they could make it work, that would be incredibly awesome. And guess who has said recently that he'd be down for one more Kirk adventure? And that's one William Shatner. So that could be an incredible thing to explore with all of this. So let's see. Speaking, I just want to make sure I don't skip anything else. Is there anything else you want to say about this episode before we move on, brother?
No, I am ready to talk about Jinkx Monsson. Let's go.
Let's do it. Let's take a quick break so I can put a little commercial here, and then we'll be right back right after this. Talk about the Devil's Chord. Yes, as Michael is alluding to, the great Jinkx Monsson is the big main baddie in this second episode of The Devil's Chord. This one directed by Ben Chessel here. It focuses on Ruby Sunday and the Doctor going back to 1963 to watch the Beatles record their first album, but they end up discovering that this world in 1963 is without great music and that people are afraid of music and what it can do. And this is all being inspired by the Maestro, as Michael was alluding to earlier. This is played by Jinkx Monsson, who is, of course, a drag performer, actor, writer, singer, best known for winning RuPaul's Drag Race Season 5 and RuPaul's Drag Race All-Star Season 7. And I was informed last night, no drag queen had done that until Jinkx Monsson had done that to win a season and win an all-star season. So certainly came with a lot of talent here to play the Maestro. As Michael said, is a child of Neil Patrick Harris is the toy maker. She is from another realm who could turn music into a physical weapon and might be part of the Pantheon, which we're getting more and more allusions to. And it's the start of their efforts to consume all music only until the Aeolian tunes of nuclear fallout are left. And before the Maestro is defeated, they are eventually defeated. They warn the Doctor again about the one who waits. So, Mike, 1963, the Beatles, Ruby and the Doctor having a fun costume change. The Beatles actors, maybe not the best incarnations of McCartney and Lennon, but overall, the story here is about a genius who finds a way to overcome the Maestro by playing that extra chord with his other friend there, McCartney and Lennon doing it together, and Ruby Sunday having a song within her that the Maestro is absolutely blown away by and alludes to the first one. So your thoughts overall, or the oldest one, your thoughts overall on this episode, what'd you feel about it?
Well, okay. I think that like if you weren't a fan of Space Babies, I get it.
Totally.
I get it. Totally. I'm not going to fight you on that. Like, it's a little silly, and ending an episode with basically a giant fart.
Yeah, basically.
I get it. This episode, give me this all season and I'm good.
This is Doctor Who.
This is some Doctor Who shit.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of Jinkx Monsson.
Yeah.
Even if you have not watched RuPaul's Drag Race in your life, just Google Jinkx Monsson, Snatch Game, Judy Garland, and just enjoy it because it's delightful. And I really love that Jinkx Monsson, you know, they've talked a lot about, they always wanted to be an actor, but then they were really drawn to drag, and they felt that when they became a drag queen, they couldn't be an actor. And then when they started acting, they were like, am I going to have to give up drag? Right. And, you know, Jinkx has gone on to play Mama Morton in Chicago. Yes. Jinkx is currently on in New York performing in Little Shop of Horrors as Audrey. Mm-hmm. And now Jinkx gets to play the Maestro and just eats the scenery with full insanity.
Yeah.
Additionally to that, I love Q in Star Trek The Next Generation.
Good point.
And I loved writing Discord on My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, who was voiced by John Delancey and was basically Q in the My Little Pony universe. So I love any character, and I love the genie in Aladdin. Like, I love any character that kind of lives outside of reality and can just kind of do whatever they want and is just like chaos incarnate. And I think what Jinkx Monsson did here was taking what Neil Patrick Harris did in the Giggle episode of the Doctor Who specials and just doubling down. I mean, Jinkx was absolutely a delight from beginning to end. So I loved that aspect of it, but I also just loved the fun in this episode. I loved the Doctor and the Ruby getting so excited that they got to have like a little 1960s fashion makeover and that we got all the 60s looks. Like, that was super fun and silly. I loved the Beatles being there. You know, I think some people expected this to be the Beatles version of the David Tennant Van Gogh episode, and I don't think it was quite that.
No, it wasn't.
But I liked that they were there, and I love things that are about. This is where Russell T Davies and I kind of vibe in the same frequency a little bit. I love things like, without music, humanity would die.
Yes.
I love this idea that without us being able to express our feelings and our emotions through music, by listening to music and experiencing music and making music, that we wouldn't have that emotional outlet and it would lead to disaster. That's an idea that I think is inherently cool. So seeing that idea play out and seeing this sort of miserable world, and the mission of the week is we need to bring music back to the world, like, that is 100% in my wheelhouse. And then in addition to that, the way that mission got used to sort of further this bigger mystery of the season, which is who is Ruby, and the fact that Ruby had this secret song in her that leads into these mysteries about he who waits and the Pantheon and what's really going on here. It's like, it really was working on all of those levels. It was super fun. It was visually exciting. Maestro was A plus plus villain to me, like
Yeah.
Disney villain quality villain. And then you got a big silly musical number at the end to sort of top things off. So I thought that was good. And I really loved how the Doctor in this episode, his speech at the end about I've experienced everything, like needing to find those 5 notes, that chord, that secret chord that's going to banish the Maestro, and his speech about I've lived a long life, I've experienced joy, I've experienced this, but the reason I can smile like this is I've experienced loss, and I know all of these things, so I'm going to find that chord, and him almost getting there but not quite, and then the Beatles coming in to really nail that chord. Like I thought that all worked really, really great.
Yeah, I agree with you. And just to correct you, because I don't want people to go crazy in the comments, it is the Matt Smith that he was the Doctor with the Van Gogh thing. Not
that's
David
what I meant. Sorry, my bad. Yes.
Yeah, but Mike is getting you, so please be patient, people. So
I'm easing in, guys. I'm easing in.
Yeah, let him put his foot in the water, for God's sake. But yeah, this was I really loved this episode. I really did, because I came out of Space Babies as an old school Doctor Who fan, going like. But when I got into this episode, I'm like, okay, now we just had to use it. Put Space Babies in perspective for me, very much so. Like, this is just laying the groundwork for people walking in. Now we're gonna go. Now we're gonna cook with grease, and we're going, man. And I loved it. And I thought Jinkx was incredible. I haven't seen any of the videos of them playing these roles on YouTube, but of course I've watched with the Lady Outlaw numerous seasons of RuPaul's Drag Race and knew her. Alyssa is still my favorite, but like I was excited to see what Jinkx could do. Right, I've got to see the goat, by the way, and so I was excited, and they were incredible in the performance, and they went so overboard. But just like someone like Shatner or other people, some people can make that overboard stuff work really well, because when they pull it back, it's even more menacing. And when the Doctor used that trick to mute sound, I thought visually that was some incredible directorial work there overall by Ben Chesil in how that looked and how that came across. Is something I'd never seen in Doctor Who before. And the fear in the Doctor when he was using this trick, because it was the last kind of trick he could use, and then having Jinkx or having the Maestro use the tuning fork into the water, the visuals of that was incredible. When they find them in the future in 2024, when London has been completely blown up and stuff because there's war raging, because there is no music, there is no joy to be taken from the music, them showing up to have this battle with the Doctor over the musical chords and with Ruby, I thought was incredible. And I almost tweeted this. I'll take this over the Multiverse of Madness battle any day when you're talking about musical notes.
It is so funny. So as I was watching it, I've had this argument so many times, and I feel like this episode was like, yes, this is what I want. Because I get into so many, when we talk about Multiverse of Madness, people are like, well, that fight with that battle with the musical notes was cool. And I've always said this. I've been like, it is cool, but it contextually makes no sense. There is nothing about music. There's nothing that this is why the music is the right weapon. It's just a thing that happens. Thing. It's cool. It looks awesome. I just wish it had some context. And so watching this musical battle with the musical notes, I was like, yes. This is the same thing, but better, because the villain is a musical villain, and what is at stake is music. Like, this is what I want. Like, this was great. So yes, I 100% agree with that.
Yeah, and I think it's another commentary on the arts and the importance of the arts and the importance of music and the importance of to our world of how the arts are so essential in keeping us from sliding in to this place of hatred and anger and violence and whatever. Hope lives eternal in music, lives eternal in the arts and things that can be created. And I think that's what essential. And Doctor Who, since the dawn of Doctor Who, has always been about hope, the possibility of better, the hope that can happen in life. And so I think that was another allusion to the overall themes of Doctor Who since the inception of the show itself. I loved also, Mike, this is really interesting because we had other things that went on in this. Let's talk about the scene where Ruby sings her song, The Carol of the Bells, there as she's suspended by the Maestro. And the Maestro is blown away by that she cannot take this song out of her heart, the power of this song. And they say, how could a song have so much power? And power like him, the oldest one from the night of her birth, he can't have been there. What for? And earlier in the episode, the Doctor on the rooftop with Ruby references that he is there in the 1960s in another place with his granddaughter, and that is essentially a reference to the first Doctor Who and Susan, who was his first companion, who was his granddaughter. So to me, there's some illusions that are being thrown to the original Doctor that could be very interesting if they're connected to Ruby's parentage as this goes along. But what did you think of the mystery of this and Maestro's reaction to Ruby and what they had to say about her connection to the oldest one?
Well, there's those two, and then there's a third mystery that I'm going to throw in on top of that I think is all kind of tied. So these are the three things. So yes, Ruby kind of floating up there, the Carol of the Bells comes out, and Maestro lose, and it starts snowing again, just like it did on the ship in Space Babies. Yeah. And Maestro loses it.
Yeah.
I believe says once Ruby falls, they say there's something wrong with that creature. Like Maestro is like not like this was unexpected. Yeah. Ruby is unexpected. Ruby has a power that harkens back to the oldest one, who I believe is also he who waits. I think like I'm assuming that those two terms are interchangeable. I could be wrong. Maybe. But that there is this bigger power, this bigger in the pantheon. There's someone that's above Maestro, above the toy maker. And even when you go back and watch The Giggle, Neil Patrick Harris also references this more powerful being that seems to already be here. So this is definitely the villain that we're building to. And Ruby's parentage and existence and power that resides inside of her is all tied to that. Yeah. So that's like the one thing. So we're like, we've got this pantheon of super powerful Q Discord like beings, which I'm 1,000% here for. Yeah. That all have impeccable fashion sense. And then you've got Ruby, sort of who's Ruby's parents, where did she come from, how is she tied into that? Right. Separately, to your point, and again, this is where I start to get into some territory where I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. So I'm going to use the comments below to edumacate myself. So please correct me, tell me, inform me, give me stuff to read. Yeah. But yes, the Doctor brings up that he's there at that time with his granddaughter, who was the original companion to the very original Doctor Who, who was also a Time Lord, but then got left somewhere at some point because like she married someone, and that's how like she left, and then other companions came along. But as someone who is maybe a Time Lord or maybe kind of similar to the Doctor, potentially, is that character still around? Are we going to bring this character back into the show? Is this someone who's all of a sudden going to show up? Which leads to the third mystery, which is the actress Susan Twist, who has appeared multiple times as multiple characters from the specials to now. Yeah. So like the same actress who played sort of the maid when David Tennant, I believe, saw Isaac Newton, was in the bar in the Christmas episode when Ruby was playing music, is the woman who serves them tea at Abbey Road, and is also one of the astronauts who leaves on Space Babies. Yeah. It's the same actress. This actress is playing all the same characters. She is showing up multiple times in the season as different people. Yeah. So the fact that she is sort of featured, and also the Doctor never actually looks her in the face, never actually sees her. Like when she shows up on screen in Space Babies, the Doctor's looking away. When she hands him tea, he's sort of already moving on to like, let's go talk to the Beatles. So there's the pantheon and these big villains and He Who Waits. There's Ruby's parentage, and then there's this actress who is showing up all over the place as similar characters, or as different characters, but it's the same actress. Yeah. And I think these are all the mysteries that we're going to be dealing with in this arc of Doctor Who.
I'll see your mystery and I'll throw you another one on top of these mysteries. And that is, who is Mrs. Flood from the Christmas episode that Anita Dobson plays of EastEnders fame? Because in the Christmas episode, the Church on Ruby was it Church on Ruby Road? Is that what it is? Yep. The middle of throughout the first part of the episode, she's freaking out about the blue phone box, the TARDIS that's sitting there on the sidewalk, right? But by the end, she winks, breaks the fourth wall, looks at the camera, and says, "What? You've never seen a TARDIS before?" So, what is Mrs. Flood's role in all of this? I've seen some people speculate that she might be the master in disguise, because remember, the toy maker encased him inside that gold tooth. Or it could be another Time Lord, possibly. Or I even heard that this is Ruby in the future, who is watching all of this happen there from that time. And they've been breaking the fourth wall quite a lot in these first two episodes.
They have been breaking the fourth wall quite a lot, which also leads to, I think, maybe one of my favorite jokes in any Doctor Who episode I've seen so far,
Okay.
which is when the Doctor is trying to find the secret chord,
Yeah.
and Ruby is in the sound booth, and then she's like, "Wait, do you hear that?" And the music kind of comes in, and then Maestro grabs them, and the Doctor says, "I thought that was non-diegetic." Which, if you're a movie person, diegetic music in a movie is the music that the characters in the movie can hear.
Right.
Non-diegetic music is the music they can't hear. So like movie score or like a song being played over. So like the fact that he was like, "Oh, I thought that was the music that we couldn't hear that was just there for the audience," which is a great fourth wall break and a great music joke. So that was good. But yeah, they definitely are doing a lot of fourth wall breaking, a lot of silliness. And like I said, like I think when you're looking at the two episodes, Space Babies kind of shows you where the silliness can sort of go a little too far.
Yeah.
But I think the silliness in the Devil's Chord was the exact right level of silliness with some serious, with some world building, with everything else.
As you were saying, the Moffat stuff, much more serious than the Davies stuff, but this felt like a combo of Davies and Moffat. And I love that that was an element of this particular episode. It makes me very excited to keep going with the season. The other part of the episode that could be curious for us to consider is remember the opening, which was very dark, as you said. The Maestro killing that gentleman in the opening there, and right in front of us, and of course kills the older lady when she tries to play as well. So keeping that darkness aspect and showing you how dangerous these villains can actually be, these beings can actually be. The kid that's there is H. Harbinger. He shows up at the end of the song, musical, peering out. So is that the Maestro's actual son? Is he the He Who Remains? I don't know. So there's questions here about where these illusions that they're making. And Russell's not a guy that tries to throw things out and then doesn't pay them off. So I think there is going to be a massive finale that leads to the end of all of this. And remember, Ruby, the actress, Millie there, is only going to be in this season. She has already bowed out for the next season. So I don't know how they're going to wrap everything up, knowing that it's a one-season arc for her, which they did recently with Bill and Capaldi, which drove me insane because I love Bill. That was one of my favorite companions. So that's going to be interesting to see, Mike. Any speculation on Harbinger and how this kid could play out, or was this just a fun little cameo?
I don't think that kid popping his head out in the musical number was unintentional. So I agree with you on that. I feel like with Doctor Who, part of the fun of it is it's like, silliness aside, it's definitely like a intellectual's sci-fi.
Yeah.
Like the Doctor doesn't carry a gun, doesn't have a weapon, just has the sonic screwdriver. Yeah. The Doctor inherently is I want to understand the universe and I'm going to solve this.
Yeah.
In a positive way.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's an inherently positive show, but it's also a show that like when mysteries are dropped and Easter eggs are there, like they're not going to get left behind. They're intentional. They're well thought out most of the time. Yeah. And so like it gives you sort of that, I love that thrill of exactly what we're doing right now is seeing these things and going, I know that this leads to something. I don't think that I'm just seeing this. Like I think that there are some bigger secrets here. And excited to get to what those are. And I think this has to be stated because I'm already seeing all of the articles about it, of people being like, oh, I don't like Doctor Who. I saw the Rotten Tomatoes score where like the critic score was like very, very high and the audience score was low. This is inherently queer. This season is inherently queer.
100%.
From the new specials on Disney Plus, the very first special up to now, all the things about this, there's an inherent queerness to this season of The Doctor that Russell T Davies has been very open about as a queer writer. And I, as a queer geek, am very much responding to it because it feels very inclusive in the right ways without being, without taking over all the things that I've liked about the other seasons of Doctor Who. But I do think it's a shame that, as is typically the case, a section of geekdom is just going down too woke. I don't like this. What are you doing? Why are you ruining my geekdom?
You can't call. I mean, if you can't call the X-Men woke, you really can't call Doctor Who not woke. It has always been woke. It has always had these left-leaning, quote unquote, left-leaning or progressive narratives throughout its construction. So that's just not a way to look at Doctor Who and assess it correctly, in my personal opinion. But I hear you, and I like that it is unabashed. Now, people talk all the time, you got to take chances, you got to be original, you got to take big swings. This is a massive big swing, and I respect it, and I'm coming around on it as I spend more time with Ncuti and Millie and enjoying what they're bringing to these characters and what they're bringing out in Ruby and the Doctor and the chemistry that is building. Look, they're not going to have perfect chemistry right off the bat. It always takes a little bit of time. I mean,
but they have pretty solid chemistry.
It's still building, in my opinion. I don't think it's as strong as I've seen, like with Amy Pond and Tennant. Like, there's just it would take a little bit of time to get Smith rather. It's going to take a little bit of time.
Was Matt Smith, John.
I said, yeah. Oh, thank you for.
No, look, I mean, to me, and again, I haven't watched all seasons. I haven't watched all Doctors and all Companions. I do think, and I love Donna Noble, and I was happy. That was the first person I saw because I watched the specials, and then going back and watching David Tennant and Catherine Tate is great. I think Matt Smith's Doctor and Amy Pond is sort of the bar to hit. I mean, I think that is about as good as a doctor companion relationship can get in what I've seen. Y'all can correct me below, but in what I've seen, that was pretty great. And so, do I think that this Doctor and Ruby are there? No, but do I think they could get there? We'll see.
Oh, yeah, I hope they do. I'm cheering for them to get there. We should finish on one last thing, and that is Ruby's parentage theories. I got to throw these out there. Could Ruby, here's some speculations. Could Ruby Sunday be Rose Tyler and 10-2's daughter? For those who don't know, Rose Tyler is Billie Piper. She was the companion for Christopher Eccleston. 10-2's daughter from an alternate universe. That's when David Tennant went to an alternate, became human, and that's where Billie stayed. Billie Piper's character, Rose Tyler, stayed with him. So did they have the child? Is that Billie Piper's character, Rose Tyler, in the flashback? Is that even her mother in the flashback? So there's questions there. Some fans have theorized that this moment is more significant than meets the eye, suggesting that the Doctor we are seeing is actually a future version of the character that has gone back in time to explore himself again, discovering Ruby Sunday and all of this. And don't forget, the Maestro was able to affect the TARDIS. That shows you something. They could be messing with the Doctor's mind about what he remembers and what he doesn't remember. So an older version coming back to remind the younger version of what he does or help him remember what he does could be interesting. And the other one that I'm kind of on board with is Susan, who is, of course, the granddaughter there of the first Doctor. She was the first companion. But she has been missing since the Doctor left her behind with a new boyfriend in the 1960s. He did promise one day he would come back and see her. And we know in 1984, she was part of the Five Doctors thing, but she was snatched out of time and continuity and then put back. So her being brought up in the Devil's Court, it could be possible that Ruby is her granddaughter and in a way, and therefore connected by blood to the Doctor. And that could be a really fun, interesting way to bring back everything and wrap it up and have them all find family within each other and be connected to each other. And she could possibly be a Time Lord herself, a Ruby. So that would be a fun thing to discover. So those are all the theories that I've seen that kind of make sense to me overall. Any of these kind of grab you as possibilities, Mike, or are you just kind of enjoying the mystery for now?
I'm enjoying the mystery, but I do kind of, in what I know of Doctor Who, which again is not a lot, the fact that they very specifically brought up the Doctor's granddaughter living in the 1960s, a character that has not been a huge part of the later continuities
at all.
It seems significant from a storytelling standpoint. So it seems like that when you have it, like you've got this pantheon, you've got He Who Waits, you've got his granddaughter. All of these things are sort of and you've got like sort of this Susan Twist actress character playing all these different things. I think they're probably, it's not three different mysteries. It's not a bunch of different mysteries. All of these things are leading to one thing. So I do think the granddaughter piece of it probably ties in.
Yeah. And I think the bi-regeneration is something that's also going to pay dividends down the road, and maybe Tennant returns down the road as well. So it could be interesting overall, because it seems like an army is forming here to battle the Doctor. Will there be other Doctors who show up? And that is not out of the realm of possibility, as we've seen in the past with multiple Doctors showing up at times in episodes to help the current Doctor. So could be a lot of fun. All right, there we go. I think that's a good place to stop, Mike. That's our spoiler review of the first two episodes. We had a lot to say, so, it's our first one, but we're going to take it episode by episode as we go along here. It's going to be a lot of fun to be breaking this thing down, especially with my friend Michael Vogel, who I've been waiting to become a Doctor Who fan. Now that he has, it's going to be a lot of fun to explore all of this with him, and I hope you all go along on the journey as well. Michael, what do we have to tell him as we wrap up here?
Well, if you would like to follow us, you can do so on Twitter at geek_buddies or on Instagram at _geek_buddies. If you would like to follow Mr. Rocha, you can do so at the Rocha Says. If you would like to follow me, you can do so at MKToon. We would also love it if you smash that like button, subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw Nation page, leave your comments below. Like we said, I'm new to this. I want y'all to inform me on everything I need to know. All the timey-wimey details go right down there in the comments, so let me know. If you're listening to this podcast, go ahead and leave us some stars and some comments so we go up in the rankings. And as always, the best thing you can do is retweet this video, post it on your socials, send it to your friends, and tell them to hang out with your buddies, the Geek Buddies.
Yeah, and for sure, if I've misspoken or have something wrong, let me know as well. As much as I've seen, as much as I know, there's still so much I still don't know about the Doctor Who situation as well. So let me know that too. All right, take care of yourselves. Be well, and we'll talk to you next time with another brand new Doctor Who spoiler review episode here on the
Geek
Buddies.
Hey!